first thing it was, at least for me, I always wonder, what kind of mouthpiece you playing? Oh, just an old thing, doesn't amount to anything. Well, I've got one here that I want to tell you about. I guess we all would agree that Vincent Bach was the #1 mouthpiece guy. And I bought a Bach this many years ago. I had a Bach 7B that I had bought downtown in New York. And I lived right near the Bach factory, and I knew Bach was there. So I walked in with this mouthpiece, and I said, Mr. Bach, this mouthpiece here is a little sharp on the rim. Sharp on the rim, my ass. You could prepare an entire meal with just that mouthpiece. And he says, what do you want me to do? I said, could you just fix it so it doesn't have such an awfully sharp bite? He says, sure. Reached in his back pocket, took out a burnishing tool like he was coring an apple. Hands it back to me. Here, try that. I put it up. I said, yeah, that feels pretty good. That's all right. I said, but the only thing, it's a little too deep to do all the different kinds of playing that I want to do. And he says, you want it a little shallower? I said, oh, if you don't mind. And so he says, sure. He takes it back in the in the shop, and he just sliced the rim off. and then he took the bottom part and he put it up against an emery wheel, whap, and he made it a little bit shallower, all right. Then he threaded both parts, put it back together. Here, try that. I said, well, it actually works pretty good. Then he says, you know, I think I've noticed when you play that your lips kind of go over the outside a little bit. And he said, I can fix that for you. It's worked for quite a few guys. Just let me skeletonize that. And I don't know what that skeletonize meant to him. But so he takes it and he comes back with it, and it looked about like that. And that's what I took into Peter Pickett's office one day. I said, I'm tired of screwing around. I just want to get back to my old Bach. And can you copy this thing? And he put that up on his graph up there, and there it is. And the only difference is Peter made me a better backboard for it. And so that takes care of what kind of mouthpiece do you play. It doesn't take care of what kind of trumpet you play. And, well, I guess no secret now. You know that I'm playing, what's the company? No, it's not a Bach. It has some features of a Bach that they have long since lost the ability to repeat. And also it's got some characteristics of a Besson. And there's a guy working here by the name of Bruce Silva, and he got me off on making a horn. I'd been making it with Zig Cancel and another mutual friend, and so by this time I was living down in Mexico, and things weren't going too well. And I happen to have a need for a piccolo trumpet. So who's the first guy I called? Lee Walkowitz. So I said, Lee, you know, described what I was looking for. And he says, yeah, hey, I'm really sorry to hear that you're going to stop making your Destino trumpets. He said, I think you're kind of getting out too soon. That's a really nice instrument. And I said, I know, but it's, I pay these guys to make a trumpet for me. I tell them exactly what I want. And they turn right around and do something totally different. And they think I don't know the difference. Because their general attitude is, what the hell does he know? He can play the trumpet, but what does he know about making a trumpet? Well, after investing a few $100,000 with my failed experiments, I kind of felt like at least I know enough not to spend any more. And Lee says, I think you're making a mistake. He says, there's one guy I think you ought to talk to is Steve Shires. Makes one of the really great trombones in the world. He's a marvelous craftsman. So he says, I think you ought to reconsider that. Now, my wife, who's got supersonic hearing, heard this conversation. She says, no, no more, please. And I said, so you think this guy, Steve Shires, could help me, huh? He said, oh yeah, the two of you would do fine together. So I called Steve up. And the next thing I know, I'm in his factory up in Boston. He invited me to come up and says, I'm thinking about making some trumpets. And so why don't we see what we can come up with? And I went up with the original Destino that I made in Germany, which is a pretty nice instrument. But my instinct was, that was then, this is now. Let's get a fresh start. So that's exactly what we did. And about 6 months later, we're beginning to get it kind of where we really wanted it, because we knew where we were headed. We just had to find the right track to get there. And Steve was fixing something or other on the horn we were working on. I said, Steve, won't it be wonderful when we've got the horn we want and we don't have to do any more experimenting? He looked up at me with his glasses on. He says, well, that day's never coming. I said, I need good news, not bad news. He says, no, I mean, for as long as we'll be making trumpets, the experiment is never over. And he wasn't kidding. So I'm still in the experimental stages. Not really, because I feel that the horn that I got here with me tonight, in this case, is exactly, if you're looking for anything similar to what I am, it's right here. And if I don't play very well tonight, it ain't the horn's fault. But I'm going to ask the guys to introduce themselves here.
Anthony Villa.
No, you're not Anthony Villa. He was put in jail years ago.
Marty Knapp.
Jason Goodell.
All right. And I was down at the Greyhound bus depot, and they were carrying signs around, we need work. So I said, hey, I have a unique opportunity for you. We'll just play a few tunes. Maybe we'll only play one, because I want to have time, since I would look like trumpet players. You could see the pain and suffering on all their faces. I have a rule. Never bother oiling your valves. And it doesn't always pay off. Yeah, there's my daily warm-up there.
Secret love?
That's it.
Yes, sir.
One, two, two. I thought it might be a good time right now to open it up for a few questions. Obviously, I had intended to talk about how I warm up every day, only I knew I was forgetting something. I just didn't realize I forgot to warm up.
I read years ago, I read that you said you shouldn't have to warm up, you should always be warmed up.
Well, I was full of shit. Yeah, sure. You can't trust the young guys talking about that kind of stuff.
What kind of a mouthpiece do you play?
Sharp. It's the one I talked about, Peter made, and it works for different weddings and different occasions. Right here.
What's the most important thing Benny Baker taught you?
That
Your
Benny,
teacher? Yeah.
my teacher Benny Baker.
Yes.
He taught me not to make a big deal out of trumpet playing. He had no soul of a trumpet player. His soul was the soul of a violin player, and a damn good one, and a conductor. The story has been told, and I believe it, that Toscanini was conducting something for the NBC orchestra, and he didn't like the way the strings were playing it at all. So he stopped the orchestra and he asked Benny to show them how it should go. Benny picked up his trumpet and played it for him, and he says, "Ma, that's nice." and that's the way they played it ever after that. On the other hand, he told me that trumpet is your best friend. Treat it well. He was comparing it to my wife that I had at that time. And believe me, the trumpet one has hands down. But I have to tell you, the first time I went in to see Benny, I'd been playing with the big bands, and I think the last band that I played with before I moved to New York to settle down was Tommy Dorsey. And Benny had played in the studios when Tommy was a studio player. They knew each other. And he says, "What can I help you with?" I said, "Well, I don't want to learn to play in a symphony orchestra. That's not my ambition. I just want to be able to play commercial music in the studios and hopefully make enough money to support my wife and kids, of which I had too many, both wives and kids." and he says, "Okay, fine." Then he proceeded to teach me every note, every last note that I would ever need to know to play in a symphony orchestra. And but the very first lesson was interesting. I'd had more than my share of difficulties. When I started playing when I was 7 years old. And I don't know how many of you guys have ever had a Bush or pea shooter number 9 in your collection. That was my first instrument. And by the age of 9, my dad and the high school band director, at the age of 7, I played first chair in the high school band. But you had to hear that high school band to know that I deserved it. But at the age of 9, my dad and Clyde Simpson, the band director, entered me in a state trumpet contest. And in those days, it was a whole different ball of wax. And you know how nowadays you have superior, very superior, excellent. This cat is unbelievable, right? All up and down the line. Then you got 1 of 3 prizes, first, second, or third. And the rest of us all were invited to go home and practice and come back the next year. So my dad and Clyde Simpson picked out a tune called The Secret. You know, that old tune. I was so terrified. I didn't know that I was at Oregon State College in Corvallis. I didn't know I was in the state of Oregon or the United States or anything. I just knew that I was scared to beat the dickens. But I played, and it was a good deal larger room than this, and they had granite floors and all steel chairs to sit in, you know. So I played it, and I guess I played really, really good. And guess who my judge was? You'll never guess it. It was Herbert L. Clark. Well, I finished the tune, and I didn't know if I'd played it good, bad, indifferent. I just wanted to get the hell out of there. And when I quit playing, when I ended the piece, everybody in the place jumped up and they started pounding their iron chairs on that granite floor and yelling and carrying on. I thought, oh God, what have I done? I thought it was bad news. And I won first place. And Herbert L. Clark came up to me afterward and he said, young man, that was quite impressive. I'd like to go out to dinner with you tonight, and let's just talk trumpet. And I said, well, thank you, Mr. Clark. I'd sure like to do that, but I have to go to the movies. I said, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs is playing at the Capitol Theater, and we don't have a movie in my little town that I live in. And so thanks, but see you later. And I still have the judge's sheet someplace. One of my many wives has it tucked away someplace, hoping it will have monetary value at some time. But so that was that for that year. Next year I came back, I won again. Next year I came back and won again. Then I was still only 7, 10, 11 years old. They said, well, no competing with the juniors for you anymore. You have to compete amongst the seniors. And so they gave us the customary list of tunes, you know. And my dad says, it's all a setup. My dad was from Europe and didn't trust anybody. He said, they're just trying to sell sheet music to tunes that aren't very good. I want you to play Carnival of Venice by Del Stairs. And I think I was 11 years old, and I'd never seen it in my life. I didn't know anything about it. And my dad saw to it that I got acquainted with it intimately. And again, not a word about playing it on a trumpet. Here's how you play it on the violin. And somebody informed them. They said, you know, that's not on the list of tunes that are allowed. He says, I don't care. They said, well, he might play it good and not get a prize. He says, what do I care if he learns how to play Carnival of Venice? That's all I want out of it. And it wasn't much of an argument left. So I played it. And I have to tell you, what little recollection I have, I played it pretty good. By then, I'd moved up, I had a Selmer cornet. And my dad didn't have the money to buy it for me. And I made my money by sweeping sidewalks in the little town I lived in. And and a few bucks I'd won on a poker game. And yes, I met it, yes. I had a little game of cards at my house, and I happened to do pretty well. Enough to be able to buy that horn. And I loved it. That cornet was a beautiful thing. And so I went and I played the Carnival of Venice and I won. So that meant that I could go to the national regional. They didn't have the just national anymore at that point, but national regional. And so my dad says, well, you can't play the same tune. Hell, I mean, you're not going to learn anything that way. So he got a copy of Willow Echoes by Frank Simon. And I learned that thing in about 2 weeks, I guess. I must have, because I went and I won the contest. And my dad decided, well, there's not much use of going and doing that anymore. And so it was getting to be old hat anyway, and I wanted to play in a dance band. So I started a little group called the Blue Notes. It was drums, piano, trumpet, and clarinet. 4 kids. Now this is an interesting social comment, but it's true, absolutely true. 50% of this 4-piece band was gay. I'm not going to tell you which tune, but I have been accused of being an unusual dresser. If that gives you any hint. But no, it was, you know, it just to show you the difference in times. I knew that Junior and the piano player, Junior Shane, and Gordon Shavy, the clarinet player, were, you know, they were different. And, but I love them to this day. And nobody gave a damn. Nobody. And it took society a long time to catch up, but they're making it. They're finally getting there. Then I wound up going on the road with the big bands. And my playing started to erode. Because my dad never thought I would need to know how to really play a trumpet. Just make believe it's a violin and do what I tell you to. And that's when I met Benny Weber. And I walked in there and he put up the first Arbin technical study in Beck. Oh, you notice I'm not trying to play it. I could if I wanted to. But when he put it up before I started playing, he says, "Okay, you know, I just want to see where we are." So I put up the trumpet. And he says, hold it right there. what in the hell are you doing? I said, I'm getting ready to play that. He says, well, by the time you're ready to play it, you'll be too old. He says, and you'll be too nervous. You can get yourself all tied up in knots. And I said, oh, I guess you're right. He said, look, wet the mouthpiece in your lips, okay? Now put the mouthpiece up on your lips. Don't move them, try to adjust it. He said, there you have it. He said, all this getting ready is doing you no good. You're ready for a disaster. So he said, just, that's tension for support and relaxation. And that he hammered away on that for a long time, every lesson. Every time he'd catch me, and he never said it, but it's an observation on my part. Now, when you think of a human being, such as myself or yourselves, you decide you want to be a trumpet player. Your body doesn't know what the hell a trumpet player is or care. So now the first time you wet that, you put it up there and you play something and it hurts. And your body says, well, we gotta watch this guy. Every time we're not careful, he puts that goddamn piece of metal up there. And we want to say, ouch. And so it's a natural reaction. Your body is protecting you. Not again. Okay, if you'll be nice. Then when you take the breath, you put the support in here in the muscles, in the corners of the mouth. Loose and strong in support here. And it's out of the books that I've read that have to do with embouchure, like I can't. Phil Farkas, a French horn player from the Chicago Symphony, has a wonderful book out, and he says what really happens here, you have a tug of war between the muscles here in this corner and the muscles here. These are pulling back and these are going in, and it's nobody wins. And when you get it balanced just right, your lips will still vibrate beautifully, and as if that's all there is to it. Well, when you come right down to it, that is about all there is to it, but I'm still fighting that battle every day of my life. I spend the first at least an hour with just buzzing the lips and the mouthpiece to get that equal sense of muscular activity, and then I'm ready to play the horn sometimes. So after about an hour of that, then I go through, some lip slurs and some stuff I got from that French guy. I can't remember his name now, but it's a lot of pedal tones. And he developed this when he was in the hospital in France. He couldn't play, so he just sat there in his hospital bed and imagining what the best thing would be, and wrote exercises. And it really works good. The only thing I'm finding is that if you overdo them, it makes you go past the point of tension and relaxation to tension, tension, tension. And then I was visiting one of my daughters back in New Jersey the other day, and one of my ex-wives had sent a bunch of memorabilia that she was in possession of, and pictures of me playing at just the time when Benny had been working with me for a period of time on this embouchure thing, and I was astounded to see how relaxed I looked. And I should have paid myself a few bucks for the trumpet lesson, because it really paid dividends. I said, I'm making more out of this than I really need to. This has got to be the ruling factor here. And I found out that when I take a nice big breath, and while I'm taking it, right up to the time I've completed the breath, I'm just setting this here, and I wind up with what Phil Farkas refers to as the brass player's mask. And essentially what it is, your teeth are together. Like if you were biting a piece of celery, like that. And your teeth come right down together. And then behind that you have these tissues here stretching across the skeletal mask, and above all, pointing downward with the chin. And you put a good hefty breath behind that, and you should be in pretty good shape. So, after that, I put my trumpet down, put on my cowboy boots, and my cowboy shirt, my cowboy pants, and I get in my pickup truck, and I drive over to the barn, and I get on a good horse, and have a wonderful afternoon of riding. And to me, that's a perfect day. But at the same time, I probably have brought up some things that you might want to discuss further. So just, if it's that or questions about the Tonight Show or this trumpet or anything, I'll talk about anything except my ex-wives.
Early big band years. Can you tell us about the trumpet section? Got here Maynard Ferguson, Doc Severinsen, Rolf Erickson, Ray Wetzel, and John Howell.
That's right. That was quite a band. It was a great band. I didn't know that existed. We played a battle of the bands with Woody Herman at the ballroom there in just north of San Diego, and we kicked our butts all the way to San Diego, across the border, and back to Canada. Quite a band. And Maynard Ferguson was in that band because of me. I got a blister on my lip when we were at Birdland, and I couldn't play. So I said, Jesus, I need to get someone to take my place. They said, well, there's a kid down here from Montreal, Canada, who's a pretty good player. Why don't we just call him? And Maynard Ferguson came in, played my book. He played everything I played, only it was an octave higher and a whole lot better. But Maynard and I had many good laughs about it. Question there.
Excuse me, real quick. I was going to ask you about that because that exact quote is in Maynard's book. I was going to ask you if that was real.
Yeah,
The quote's in here.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I brought today my best friend, as you say, a 1965 Kristen Turner Severinsen model. They played it for 35 years.
Well, yes, I can tell you something about that. You're ready for a new trumpet. That horn was good for its time. But hey, baby. Nice there. I do want to talk about that because I was doing the Steve Allen show. Our version at that time of the Tonight Show, and then the Sunday show that Steve had. Skitch Henderson was band leader, and a guy named Sandy Sandberg, who was beloved in the musical instrument business, was a good friend of mine, and he said, I think it's about time for you to move out and start doing some clinics, and we'll develop a trumpet for you at Getson. Well, I wasn't as excited about that maybe as I should have been. So anyway, the first clinic that I ever did in my life, Sandy said, well, I'll help you. So we sat down in a bar till we got too drunk to know what we were doing. In those days I was drinking. I don't anymore. A little less. but Sandy had a yellow line pad, and we wrote out everything the two of us thought would be proper to have in a clinic. I said, how long is this supposed to last? He said, oh, you play a little something, talk, and, hour, maybe, hour and a half, depending on the questions. I said, where are we going to do this? He said, at the University of Michigan on a big band day that they have, and Bill Ravelli will be there. So I didn't know what the hell that meant, but I sure found out. I get there, and two wonderful things happen. First of all, my entire clinic and demonstration lasted about 17 or 18 minutes. And there was nothing but kids there. They weren't going to ask any questions. And Bill Ravelli, the meanest son of a bitch who ever came down the pike, comes and he sits on the edge of the table and he says, and he, without saying a word, he just took over my whole clinic. And he guided me, and he guided the questions, and he made it happen. And he turned out to be one of the best friends. I get kind of teary when I think about it. But I got back at him. So anyway, I finished with that, and the second part of that whole day that was interesting to me, and if there's any band directors in this room, or past or present, whatever, it doesn't matter. Bill Ravelli took a bunch of kids about 11 to 13 years of age, something like that, maybe, must have been 35 or 40 of them, and they played something with whoever was in charge of doing that. And they were bad. I mean, they just were not that, they weren't very good at all. And I saw Bill Ravelli, again, rise to the occasion. He stood up in front of those kids, and without yelling or screaming or any of the mean stuff he was accused of, in a very gentlemanly and loving way, he made them go from sounding like a not very good junior high band to an outstanding high school band. And when the whole thing was over, I thanked him for getting me through a difficult thing. And he said, there's just one thing I want to say. He said, you shouldn't just call yourself Doc Severinsen. You're not a doctor, are you? I said, no, my dad's pointed that out to me too. He is a doctor, and he kind of resents it that everybody in town calls me Doc, and then kind of fluff him off. And he said, well, I agree with him. He said, you know, your name is Carl, right? He said, you should go by the name of Carl Severinsen. He said, it's much more dignified. And I said, thank you, sir. And behind my brother, they said, cold day in hell, what else? And so that was my introduction to high school bands, the scene with Ravelli, and learning. I kept my ears open for everything that was going, and from that on, clinics were much easier for me to do. And I did a lot of them, and I never did a clinic that I didn't learn quite a bit more than I was there to teach. And met a lot of great human beings, guys and women who were wonderful band directors, and I still see them every now and then, or kids who were in the bands. Now, about that trumpet. At the time that I went with the Getson Company, they made what was generally acknowledged to be the absolute worst trumpet ever made in the history of the world. It was terrible to look at, unplayable. There was no reason to go on with it. And all of a sudden, there I am. It's my job to try to come up with a trumpet. So I had a lot of good old Bachs and Bessons and things like that, and I went to the factory out in Elkhorn, Wisconsin, and it was interesting. There were just two guys, Merle Harmon, and I forgot the other guy's name. Just the three of us, just the three of us. And we decided, okay, here's what we're going to do. And we, you know, I can't remember this, what we thought we were going to do, but one wonderful thing happened. Vincent Bach was a very good friend of old man Getson. And he wanted to make a present to him to help us along. And he drew up a lead pipe. I saw it. There it was in Vincent's hand. And so they made that. And it turned out to really be good. And the horn that we came up with after we were around for a while, the retail list was $300. And people wouldn't buy it. They'd play on it and say, oh, it's a nice blowing horn. But who wants a $300 trumpet? A guy who's only got $300. I don't know about you.